Okay, a good Tavach, a freilich Tavach. This Shabbos was the anniversary of the last time the Rebbe spoke 34 years ago about the campaign that the Rebbe introduced then 34 years ago, that everyone should study about Mashiach. The Rebbe said that since all the preparations for Mashiach have been achieved already, Mashiach hasn't yet come. So the question the Jewish people ask is, what could we do to actually make it happen? This question is echoed in the words of Ethics of Our Fathers. And this week, Rabbi Yomer, Rabbi says, what is a path and man should choose to actually end the exile, to make it actually happen? And the Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, the author of this teaching, was someone who was called Chivra de Rebbe, was called a Metzora. He was called someone with tzaras, because the disease of tzaras, although on the surface it's something that is a punishment for Lashon Hara, but the Alter Rebbe explains that Mashiach is called a Metzora. Why is Mashiach called a Metzora? Because the lights of the godly light of the coming of Mashiach, the godly light of Mashiach, is so intense that the world is not a vessel for it, and therefore comes down to the world in a way that the world can't accept it. It's kind of like in our prayers we say the words, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates light and creates darkness." The Torah says that when you say the words "create light," you should touch your arm tefillin. When you say the words "create darkness," you should touch your head tefillin. And the question is, the head tefillin are holier than the arm tefillin. So why is it when we come to the words about darkness, are we specifically touching the head tefillin when the when the head tefillin are holier? And the answer is that darkness is actually higher than light. Darkness means it refers in this instance to the world, the higher part of heaven, the higher part of Gan Eden, the world of Bria, and because that world, from our perspective here, is like darkness, because we're not a vessel for it. So to therefore be called darkness, but really it's a much greater light. In a similar way with Mashiach, Mashiach is called a Metzora because he brings to the world this incredible godly light that's beyond the world. And therefore, it's called, from our perspective, it comes out as a disease until the light emerges as light, until it's revealed. So it was today when the Rebbe introduced this campaign 34 years ago that we should begin studying about Mashiach. And he said it's not only something that we should do to bring Mashiach, but it's also something we should do to put ourselves in the right mindset. Another line in Ethics of Our Fathers this week is, look at three things and you'll never make mistakes. You won't even come close to making mistakes. So it lists that there's an eye that sees you, there's an ear that hears you. If you think about these things, if you look at these things, you won't make mistakes. But the inner meaning of this number of look at three things alludes also to look at the coming of Mashiach. Picture the future redemption with Mashiach. Study about it, learn about it. And then not only we not make any mistakes, we won't come close to mistakes. We won't come close to mistakes. So the learning about Mashiach doesn't just bring Mashiach, it puts you in a state where you're ready for Mashiach. On that note, I want to share with you tonight four stories, hopefully, if I have enough time, God willing. Zalman, Shazalman, do me a favor, can you pass the plug from upstairs? Thanks so much. And a battery over here. The first story I want to share with you is about the Baal Shem Tov. It's customary to say a story about the Baal Shem Tov Motzei Shabbos. The book I'm quoting from is Shivchei Baal Shem Tov. It's known that many of the stories in this book are exaggerated, but nevertheless, the Tzemach Tzedek said that regarding the stories of the Baal Shem Tov, even if it's not true, you have to know that it could be true. Not all the stories of Baal Shem Tov are true, because there's so many stories that. Thank you so much. So this is a first story about the Baal Shem Tov in the famous Sefer Shivchei Baal Shem Tov. So it's not that It's not a story again that was shared by the Rebbeim, but it's a very, very powerful story with a powerful message. Stories like this. Thank you, Zalman.
So
I knew that, Zalman. I knew that. Amazing. So you fixed the camera somehow by adding that other plug. All right, go figure. So yeah, you put in the other camera somehow. All right, moving right along. So the story is like this: Baal Shem Tov, before he became an adult and became the famous tzaddik called the Baal Shem Tov, he worked in carpool. He brought children to study Torah. He would go to various villages, and he would bring the children together to the city to study Torah. And we know the Mezritcher Maggid said how much love he showed these children when he would gather them together. And the Mezritcher Maggid said, I wish I could kiss a Sefer Torah with the same love that the Baal Shem Tov would kiss each child when he brought them to school. So you have to understand the context, the time period when this took place. The Baal Shem Tov was born in Tav Nun Ches, which was 50 years after the famous pogroms that were led by the Cossacks, led by Bogdan Khmelnytsky, and the Jewish people were in a state of total. It was a miniature Holocaust. Hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed. Every Shabbos we commemorate this massacre because we say Al Varachim for Musaf on Shabbos. It's to commemorate the massacre that happened in that year in the 1650s. And Baal Shem Tov was born 50 years later in 1708. So the Tav Nun Ches. No, is that 17? Okay, we'll figure out English year another time. Anyways, so the Jewish people were in a very great state of fear after that. People don't want to leave the house. And the Baal Shem Tov would take these children out of the house, bring them to school, and he would celebrate with them and dance with them and sing with them while on the way with a wagon to school. So this caused such an uproar in heaven that the angels and the heavenly academy, everything going on in heaven, was wondering, did Mashiach come? There's such a great joy by these Jewish children. What's going on? What's happening? Did Mashiach come? And although Mashiach didn't come, what Baal Shem Tov was doing with these children was actually bringing Mashiach. Because what's Mashiach about? Mashiach is about the Jewish people celebrating Torah mitzvahs in the world without any fear whatsoever, without any limitation. It's fully engaged with Torah and mitzvahs, celebrating with Hashem. That's Mashiach. Like the Rebbe once said that when Mashiach will come, we're going to sing, as the Talmud says, the 10th song. What's the 10th song about? Mashiach comes. We don't know the exact song, but the Rebbe said the content of the song will be Yet Nikava, how there's nothing to be afraid of. All there is Hashem. Hashem is higher than everything else. And that's what the children would do when Baal Shem Tov would pick them up to go to school. They would sing and dance to Baal Shem Tov. So it's caused such a simcha in heaven, such an uproar. The angels wondered, Mashiach come. And although Mashiach again didn't come, but it was making it happen. So the Samach Mem, so the evil inclination, the Satan, wanted to, he said, the world's not ready for this. The world doesn't deserve this. So he spoke, I don't know how this angel, the Satan, spoke, but he somehow communicated to some sorcerer. And the sorcerer created some kind of a werewolf. And the werewolf came out, next time Baal Shem Tov was on the wagon with these children, and he scared these children by his very presence, just by coming out looking like a werewolf, he scared the children. So much so that they didn't want to go back again. They went back home, they were traumatized, and this ended this amazing thing that Baal Shem Tov was doing with these children, but the Baal Shem Tov didn't give up. And he spoke to the children and he encouraged them, let's come together one more time, let's try this once again. And they came together again, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And the werewolf came out again. And just like it says about King David hit one time and then Baal Shem Tov hit the werewolf once, the werewolf dies, and at the same time the werewolf dies, the sorcerer who created the werewolf also died. And the Baal Shem Tov's light continued to shine in the world and continues to shine in the world and prepares the world for coming Mashiach, gives us this sense of absolute trust in Hashem, which is similar to studying about Mashiach, giving you the sense that it's real and it's true and there's nothing to be afraid of. So on that note, 2 stories. Okay, 3, maybe 4. Let's go. There's a famous professor named Herman Brandnever, lang gesund. Herman Brandnever was a refusnik. He was a very talented professor, but as would often happen in Soviet Russia, when someone would request to leave Soviet Russia, they would immediately be lose their position, especially people of prominence, like professors. The Russian government really valued professors. So because he had become in Soviet Russia religious, and because he wanted to move to Israel, he immediately lost his job in research in Riga, and he had no place to go because they weren't letting him come out of Russia. But eventually, he did move to Israel with his wife, and when he came out of Russia, he eventually made his way to visit the Rebbe. I'm not going to say all the stories about Professor Brandnever, but just one amazing story was that when he came to America, his field is a very unique field. It's called magnetohydrodynamics. And he was a pioneering professor in this field. And because of his work in Russia, he was given many speaking opportunities, but not only because of his pioneering work, but also because of his because he was a religious Jew, and being a professor, a Russian professor, and yet to be so steadfast in his faith was something very interesting to American people when he came out in the 70s. And he actually was sought after not only again by universities to talk about his field, but also talk about being a Jew and how he was able to, unlike many religious professors, Jewish religious professors who sort of departmentalize their religious beliefs and their science, the the approach of the real approach of Torah is that a person has to be holistic. A person has to realize it has to be integrated learning. You can't just study the Torah and then it not relate to the way you think about the world. You don't have to have an answer every question, but you have to know that the Torah is relevant to what's going on in your life. So, to that end, the Rebbe encouraged Professor Brandnever to put out a a um, a publication called what's it called? Be'er HaTorah, I think it was called. And it was about the relating science to Torah and answering questions, gathering together religious professors, religious scientists to answer questions that come in because of science and Torah. Anyway, so because of this, he was on a speaking tour, and he had an audience with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to him that he should. He told the Rebbe, "I'm going to speak." He didn't want to do this last speaking engagement in Philadelphia, University of Pennsylvania, but he had one more engagement, and he's going to go to speak in this college in his field. And the Rebbe said to him that when you're there, you should seek out a professor that is in your field. Now, again, it's a very limited, he's a pioneering professor. There weren't many professors in this field. So he knew every professor in the world that had done some research in this field. He knew them all. He knew all the players. He also knew that there were no professors in the University of Pennsylvania that were in this field. So he didn't say anything, but when he took a train to Pennsylvania, and by Avram Shem Tov, the Rebbe's emissary to Pennsylvania, greeted him at the train station. He told Rabbi Shem Tov, the Rebbe made this mistake. Rabbi Shem Tov's like, the Rebbe doesn't make mistakes. We need to find this professor. If the Rebbe said there's a professor here, we're going to find the professor. So it's like the stories of the Baal Shem Tov. We're going to go in the University of Pennsylvania, and in Temple University, somewhere in this city, there's going to be a professor in your field because the Rebbe said there's no question. So they went all day looking for a professor. Professor Brandnever said he didn't eat, he didn't drink. All day they're walking around the university buildings, and they're going from building to building, asking this question: do you know anybody who's into magnetohydrodynamics? Do you have a name? You know which professor it is? No, just someone, a scientist. Do you know anybody? And they're going all day. It was in the wintertime. It was 5, 6 o'clock. It was already dark outside. And they finally met this professor named, his last name is Professor Ye, a Chinese professor. And he was clearly very familiar with this field. And the reason why Professor Brenner didn't know about this guy is because he had just moved from California to Pennsylvania. And so he was very excited to meet Professor Brenner, and he told him, in 6 weeks from now, there's going to be a conference of on this field, magnetohydrodynamics, and I want to invite you. It's a program that has already been finalized. However, I would like you to speak at this program because you're a Russian professor. You certainly have something to share. Please, I want you to come attend this conference in Palo Alto, in California, and to share what you have. Professor Brenner was like, I understand. You said it's finalized. How can you put me in there? He says, well, I'm part of the programming committee for this. I'm part of the committee. I'm on the thing. I could get you in. Professor Brenner was like, well, it's in 6 weeks. I'm going back to Israel right now. And so I can't thank you so much for the invitation, but not this year. Okay. So Professor Brenner goes back to New York before he set out to go back to Israel. And he wrote the Rebbe a note what had happened. He met Professor Ye, he invited him to the conference, and he's not going because he's on the way back to Israel. And the Rebbe responded that there's an opportunity here, and he should try to change his ticket so that he could stay in New York until the conference and go to Palo Alto to attend this conference. So by this time, Professor Brenner knew that he already was very familiar with the Rebbe, but this was a direct instruction of the Rebbe, and he already seen a miracle that defies human understanding. How the Rebbe knew this professor was there, so he knew this. He better pay attention to this. So he did attend the conference. At the conference, there were two representatives from the U.S. Naval Research, and they met Professor Brenner there. Thank you, where's the book we're reading today? Give it to me. These representatives, these officers of the U.S. Naval Research, they said to Professor Brenner, wait, this book is from this story is from this book, To Know and to Care. And they told Professor Brenner, we're very impressed with your work. We really like what you're doing. And we want to give you a grant from the U.S. government to create a laboratory in Israel to pursue your career in research on magnetohydrodynamics. That's what they told him. And Professor Brenner was interviewed in 1991, and he said that this conference that he was at was in 1973. And since then, the government has renewed the grant already 6 times. And as he's being interviewed in 1991, the government just gave him another $15 million to continue his research. So he clearly saw that the Rebbe's words were prescient and telling him change his life and his life, and how many other lives were changed as a result of this. 1 second, hold on. So Professor Brenner was also in 1985. He got a phone call from the Rebbe's office, and the message was that he should give a message. He should relay the following to his contacts in Russia. Gorbachev came to power in March, and the Rebbe called him in April of 1985. The Rebbe said to him that this new prime minister of Russia, Mikhail Gorbachev, is going to bring about a major immigration to Israel. The door is going to open. There's going to be a major change in the whole country, and they should prepare for this. This is what's going to happen. You should relay this to his contacts in Russia. Okay, wow. He calls up his contacts in Russia, and his contacts in Russia say, are you sure you heard right? My wife is just interrogated by the KGB. She hasn't come back yet. Things were really going on, really intense things. It wasn't as bad as in time of Stalin, but it was terrible. And so Hasidim, even these Hasidim, these people who ordinarily, they knew the Rebbe, but you must have heard wrong. Tell the Rebbe that it hasn't changed. So he calls back up the Rebbe's office. He tells them the Rebbe what they said. And the Rebbe said that it will become better and better, but it already started. It's not yet, Rebbe said, it's not seen yet, but it has already started. It'll become better and better. And that's what the Rebbe said. In 1991, Mikhail Gorbachev visited Israel. This was already after Perestroika and everything. And Professor Branover met him when he visited Israel. And he told Mikhail Gorbachev, when you came to power, there was someone who predicted all that you were going to do. And of course, was amazed. He said, yes, he came to Israel in 1992. And he said, Gorbachev said, I can't believe this because not only 1985, but in 86 and 87, I had no idea about Perestroika and opening the doors. I had no thoughts about that yet. I would love to meet this man who predicted all this, but I had no idea myself. That's a story. So these stories underscore how something has started already, and the Rebbe sees it, and it hasn't yet come out. And then the whole world sees what happened. I mean, the whole world's different than it was when the Rebbe said this in 1985. It took a couple of years till it actually was revealed, but it started then. Similar way, the coming Mashiach has started already. It hasn't been. It's not open to our eyes, but it's on the way. I'll show you one more story. Okay, two more. When I was studying yeshiva in 770, there was a boy in my group who told me the following story, which makes sense to me now when I heard the story I'm going to share with you after this story. He told me when he was a child, he had this skin condition, some kind of eczema or something, and his father asked Rebbe for a bracha, and Rebbe said to ask a doctor who's a friend. And he went over to one of his friends, wasn't really religious, but he said to him, listen, I know you're a doctor, but let me tell you something. Please make this an easy cure, because whatever you say is going to work. The Rebbe said, ask the doctor as a friend, just say something easy. So I don't know this doctor, but my friend told me that the doctor says, just take some canola oil and rub it on it and things will be fine. And my friend told me the story himself they had been to many doctors before, but this, after assuming the Rebbe's blessing, it just went away. That's what my friend told me. So I heard a story about Rabbi Yisrael Glitzenstein. In 1976, the Rebbe began a campaign about Jewish education in that year, 1976, Tavshin Lamed Vav. And although ordinarily the Rebbe would only attend a Lag BaOmer parade when Lag BaOmer fell out on Sunday, because then the public schools were closed and many more children could come, because that year the Rebbe began the campaign of education and reaching out to every child, giving them a Jewish education. So as a special thing, the Rebbe attended Lag BaOmer parade that year, although Lag BaOmer was on a Tuesday and there wasn't as big of a crowd. So the Rabbi Yisrael Glitzenstein, he was involved in creating the days that the Rebbe went out to when he spoke. He was involved in creating it, and he was involved in dismantling it. And when he came out to put everything away after the parade was over, he got hit by this large piece of wood, and it went into his foot. And yeshiva students, they're indestructible. So okay, it hurts. Went to yeshiva the next day as if nothing happened, and the next day nothing happened. But although things were getting worse and worse, and I think it was on the Shavuos that year, in 1976, was on Friday and Shabbos. So on Friday morning, he had this terrible, terrible pain in his foot, and on the first day of Shavuos, and he wanted to go to the hospital right after Shavuos, but not right after Shavuos. He went first to get wine from the Rebbe's cup. The Rebbe will give out wine after Shavuos, and then he went to the hospital. The hospital, the doctor was really like very concerned. I think at this point, I think it's called sepsis, that the infection had gotten so bad, and the doctor says your life is in danger. This is crazy. You can't. You've got to take care of this. But the problem was Israel Gutzenstein was going to get married the following Thursday, which meant that on Sunday he was going to daven. It's customary to use the Rebbe's siddur to daven mincha. The Rebbe will give his siddur to all grooms before their wedding to pray the mincha prayer. And so, because he was traveling to Israel on a Thursday, traveling to Israel on Monday for his wedding on Thursday, so he was going to use their Siddur the day before his trip on Sunday. So he wanted to be there. So he was like telling the doctor, I got to go. I was like, what are you talking about? And the doctor realized this guy is actually going to leave. He's not going to be there the next day. The doctor like, okay, here are papers. Sign this, sign this, sign this. You're taking your life in your hands. I'm not going to be responsible for you leaving the hospital. Is that clear? So he signs all the papers against medical advice. He leaves the hospital and he uses the Rebbe's siddur, and he prepares to go to have a private audience with the Rebbe before his trip. Before going to the private audience, he the Bissel Tzuheich. So before going to the private audience, he went into a mikveh. He immersed himself in the mikveh, and when he comes out of the mikveh again, he had this crazy, crazy pain. And he comes to the Rebbe, and he tells the Rebbe what had happened to him. I forgot to mention another crazy thing. Again, yeshiva students are indestructible. On Shavuos, it's customary, as Rebbe instructed, that to go to another synagogue and to bring joy to another synagogue by hold on a second. But he walked to as joining all the yeshiva students and men who would go out to bring joy to other synagogues far away from Crown Heights, walking for an hour and a half there, hour and a half back. And he went on this camp. He did this. He was part of this. Incredible. With his crazy infection in his foot. So when he came out of the mikveh, his foot was all red, and he was in terrible pain. And he comes in the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe asked him what the doctors had told him. And the Rebbe asked, did the doctors tell you should raise your foot? Did the doctors tell you should lower your foot? The doctors say you're not allowed to walk on your foot at all. What did the doctors tell you? So he told the Rebbe what the doctors had said, and then the Rebbe did the following. The Rebbe said, since we are regular people, and therefore we can't work in a way that's completely beyond nature, and therefore you should go see Dr. Seligson and ask for his advice until your trip, and also ask him for advice of what you should do after you get to Israel. And this will pass. That's what the Rebbe said. And this will pass. So he, okay. So he felt really good. The Rebbe gave him a clear blessing. It's going to pass. So he goes the next day to Dr. Seligson. I forgot to mention, he went to Dr. Seligson before he visited the Rebbe, and Dr. Seligson you're in after you went to the mikveh, went to Dr. Seligson. Dr. Seligson, you're in this is a terrible danger. But after he went to the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe told him to ask Dr. Seligson, and Dr. Seligson asked him, just to give a little bit of a preview about Dr. Seligson before we go on. Dr. Seligson was given explicit instruction by the Rebbe that he should listen to what the Rebbe tells him to do, and what all doctors in the world will say, don't worry, you should listen to what the Rebbe tells him to do. The Rebbe actually once said to him, just like a Kohen eats the sacrificial meat, and the owners of the sacrifice are atoned for, so the Rebbe says you should The Rebbe gave him, I think it was wine, said l'chaim, and this will bring health to all your patients. A very unusual relationship. The Rebbe did many miracles, as Rebbe said to Yisrael Gutzenstein, since the miracles have to go through nature, therefore you should go to Dr. Zalkson. It wasn't just like, let's get medical advice. It's like, let the miracle flow through some natural realm. It's going to be a miracle. The Rebbe gave him also, a coin to distribute in Israel. And then he goes, so next, after he has this audience to the Rebbe, he goes the next day to Dr. Zalkson. Dr. Zalkson said, the Rebbe told you should speak to a doctor? You say to speak to Dr. Zalkson. He said, Dr. Zalkson. He said, are you sure that's what the Rebbe said? He said, yes. He said, okay. So go to Khan Superettes. Khan Superette is on the corner of Union and Kingston, and buy some orange juice. If they don't have orange juice, buy grapefruit juice. And 3 times a day, you should drink a cup of orange juice. And that's it. And since the Rebbe told you I should take care of your care as well after you get to Israel, so I'm writing a letter for your doctor in Israel. Okay, buy orange juice. So he goes to the store. They had orange juice. He buys the orange juice, and he has a cup of orange juice 3 times a day. He gets on the plane the next day on Monday to go back to Israel. And all of his family greets him in the airport, and he tells them of this, and he felt on the way there, he had terrible pain when he started the trip. When he got there, all the pain went away completely. Total miracle beyond nature. Completely beyond nature. When he gets there, the family is greeting him, welcome groom, welcome son, future son-in-law. By the way, guys, let me tell you a crazy miracle that happened with the Rebbe just now. And they got a little nervous. Like, dude, let's get you checked out by a doctor. So they took him to a doctor. The doctor reads the letter of Dr. Zalkson. And he's like, are you sure this is from a doctor? He says, yeah. He reads the letter twice, 3 times. He can't figure this out. Orange juice, orange juice, orange juice. What is the guy talking about? Anyways, but that's what happened. The miracles beyond nature completely. That was the Rebbe's advice, and that was a vessel nature for the blessing to be manifest. I'll tell you guys one more story. L'chaim, l'chaim, v'rachim. This is just because of David Isser. 5 more minutes, right? We have a rule over here in Los Angeles, those not familiar. I want to leave it for Brengen, as my grandfather, Rabbi Volkman, said, you have to stay 5 more minutes. So one more story. Rabbi Motel Ashkenazi's widow, Mrs. Sima Ashkenazi, she was given a gift by her husband of a silver dollar that he had received from the Rebbe when he had studied in New York as part of the Kvutza, part of the group of boys that come from Israel to study. At the end of their year of study, the Rebbe gave him a silver dollar, and he made a necklace out of the silver dollar to give his wife. And for her, this was a very precious thing. She wore it all the time. She wore it all the time, every single day, for 25 years, from their wedding until 1991. For 25 years, she wore it every single day until she went to visit some Jewish women in a prison in Israel. When she went to visit the women in the prison, there was one lady who was a little bit crazy, and she said, this is a heist. You have to give me your jewelry. And although she was crazy, nothing happened. Mrs. Ashkenazi is like, I better not bring my jewelry here. I assume they want to bring this necklace. So the next time she visited, she put this necklace into a little pack, into some kind of wallet that she was carrying, a purse. And when she got there to the prison, the next time, she put the purse down and she prayed mincha. She did the afternoon mincha prayer, as the Alter Rebbe said that women are also obligated to daven mincha, and she finishes davening mincha, and she finishes talking to the women in the prison, and she opens her purse, and the necklace isn't there. And you have to understand that for her, this wasn't just losing jewelry. This was losing her most prized. It was her life itself. She's in her words, she lost, like, it was a part of her life. It was part of her life. And she said this to the women, please, guys, it's not jewelry. For me, it's life itself. I can't explain this to you, but this is something from it's life itself. I need this back. Her son's bar mitzvah was the next week. She went to New York for Hanukkah, and the Rebbe asked his secretaries to go get, although it wasn't extant so much in New York at the time, to get silver dollars. He wanted to give everyone silver dollars in 1992, I think, Hanukkah. And so everyone got this pouch. It said Hanukkah Geld, silver dollar. So although the Rebbe generally did not give out silver dollars, but that year especially, but when she came just the next week, she's in Israel. How often did she come? She got another silver dollar from the Rebbe. And you can imagine how she felt. You can imagine how that totally revived her crushed spirit. Bottom line is, as Rebbe said, it started already. It's just not apparent yet. Redemption through Mashiach Tzidkeinu has started. And not only has it started, it's already apparent. We see all the signs of the Torah about the coming Mashiach. And as Rebbe said, today, on the Sefira of the 21st of the Yomer, we have to begin learning about Mashiach. And that's the way to bring Mashiach. That's the way to live with Mashiach. We got to do this. We got to dedicate time to study about Mashiach. And this will actually make it happen. A good Tavach, Reb David, a good Tavach, Reb Baruch, Reb Yehuda, Reb David, Chayesara, Michal David, Reb Beryl. A good Tavach, a Freilich Tavach. We should meet in Yerushalayim with Mashiach Tzidkeinu tonight. L'chaim.